All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming here. I think the panel later actually is going to elucidate a lot more about what we're doing on RWAs and the potential. I was asked to sort of give a little bit of an opening talk. First of all, how many of you here are not from Hong Kong? Amazing, right? So I think Hong Kong really needs you guys, because actually that's one of the reasons why Hong Kong has been pushing so hard in Web3. For those of you who don't know, Hong Kong passed the Stablecoin Act. Hong Kong in the stock market is a buzz on RWAs for those of you who haven't been paying attention. So it's a hot topic. And of course, a lot of people are excited about that potential. What does it mean when you tokenize assets? And I think the growth of the space has brought a lot of capital back into Hong Kong. So this is very, very important for the space, and you can see what's happening here. The other thing that's interesting is that Eric Trump is here in Hong Kong, as you know, and it had zero impact on business, and essentially it kind of demonstrates how we are now at a pace where business first, politics second, at least in this era, and crypto is at the center of it all. So I think we're all in a great space. Anyway, before I pass it on to Anna, I think one of the things I wanted to share a little bit about why RWAs are so important, not just to us and to me and to really the entire industry, because of course, obviously there's trillions of dollars that you could potentially tokenize. I think of it as, and this is, maybe I'll talk a little about Nuva later, this is something about how we can really bring more people into the financial ecosystem and improve financial literacy. So for those of you who might be not quite as old as me, you might not remember a time where we used to have something called digital literacy. We used to have something where if you weren't online, you didn't know what a website was, you were digitally illiterate. You were outside of that circle. Of course, nobody talks about that anymore today. And now everyone's digitally literate. And what happened was that basically information and knowledge grew lightning speed and distributed essentially at the speed of the internet. So we had knowledge, we had information, we had know-how at the speed of the internet. And what tokenization and blockchain does, and effectively by extension what we can do with RWAs, is that it creates value. It's value creation and value delivery at the speed of the internet. So whether you tokenize real estate, artwork, whether you basically take something that hasn't existed before, like gaming items, or whether you tokenize student loans, something we're doing as well, which is again something that hasn't been done before, what you're doing is you're extending the network. You're delivering value faster, better, cheaper than ever before. And that's why it's exciting for places like Hong Kong and for others. But the real superpower that we see in the potential with RWAs and the entire tokenization space is that it does what it did to digital literacy 30 years ago to financial literacy. So today, there's only a small percentage of the world, most of them in this room, plus people who live in Hong Kong, who understand money, who understand investment, who understand assets. Most of us in the world still live in a labor world where we're working, which is important, but we live in a capitalist society. We need to know how to invest. I think I saw the statistics on the global side. Something like 9 or 10% of the world has any kind of investment portfolio. So in Hong Kong, of course, it's higher, but on a global scale, all 90% do not have an investment portfolio. They don't understand money, they don't invest, and that's why we have a problem, because those who do understand money are doing much better than the ones who don't. And we think tokenization can change that. But how do we change that? Well, if you can take something that someone understands from the real world, that they have a relationship. Like a year and a half ago, we tokenized a Stradivarius violin. Sure, it's expensive and not available for everyone per se. However, a musician who knows nothing about music can now suddenly have access to an instrument of some form in which they can understand its value and then learn about money and access that. Or in the early days in Web3 gaming, which is still doing well, by the way, despite what some people might say, people in the Philippines who never actually had access to a bank account suddenly got onboarded with a wallet, earned some tokens, and then actually now end up owning Bitcoin because they got involved in the world of money, but in the digital side. So the power of tokenization and the power of real world assets is it makes it relatable. It brings people, it doesn't just extend the network of assets to the broader world, it brings people from the rest of the world into the world of money, basically. Again, value and value creation at the speed of the internet. And that's why we were so excited about RWAs, excited about what we're doing with Nuva, and of course together with our partners in Hashkey and others as well, because these platforms allow us to tokenize all sorts of assets, both that are existing assets or assets that didn't exist before that can be now monetized. So we shouldn't just limit ourselves in thinking about the hard assets, the houses, the real estate, or the commodities. The largest value growth that happened in the last 30 or 40 years was actually virtual as well. It was intellectual property. IP, trade secrets, patents. These are also domains that you can tokenize and have value from as well. And the biggest companies in the world are basically all virtual type of rights, IP, assets, and so forth. So we're excited about this. Thank you again for hosting us as well. About the potential. You'll hear a lot more from the panel about RWAs and what you can all do. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Thank you.